I don't know about understanding accents, I can understand you. And I ain't changing mine for nothing. Because that's me. I had too many images in the past. I try all different talkings and that, you know. But today, you know I who I am through this program. And I'd like to also say thanks to the people that have got this convention together. Because I know, you know, when you do something like this, you try and do it to bring us together and to make people happy. And the fact is, I found out today that you can't make everybody happy. So, you know, that's the way it goes. But I'm happy. I met a few more happy faces here. I keep bumping into people that I'm meeting. You know, it's sort of, you know, I don't mind, you know, I don't give a monkey's how people approach me, you know, it takes a bit of getting used to. I think I've got a few broken ribs or whatever, for a few tough hugs. But back home we normally shake hands and kiss the girls. But wherever you go, you know, you just conform to whatever it is. And like I say, you know, I'm a grateful recovering addict, and I know that I'm a miracle, and I'll tell you why, because of this program. I can't do it on my own, you know, and I believe, you know, that you know, while we're talking right now, there's a lot of people out there suffering, going through that same insanity, and when I think about that, you know, that brings me down to earth, you know, and like Jeremy said, you know, about a higher power. I remember at one time, you know, I believe that I've got a higher power, and I use the word God, and I'm not ashamed to use that word. But when I first read it in the literature, I thought, no. And as it happens, then he wasn't around in England then either. But it was alcohol and drugs that brought me into this fellowship. You name it, I took it to an extent, it doesn't matter. To share, you know, experience, strength and hope. And I can only share my experience, you know. And, you know, I hear some people, I don't know, at meetings and stuff like that. I ain't too fussy when I go to a meeting, I don't care. Because I know that when someone's sharing, they're doing exactly what I'm doing in that room, keeping what I have today. So whatever they say is okay. And whatever I say is okay, and if you like it, that's cool. If you don't, so what? You know, I can only be me. And but it's something that, another thing that I always find in these rooms is that there's no one who can help me in the past. You know, I've had psychiatrists, judges, probation officers, and I've driven them all up the wall. I was a psychiatrist's nightmare. I used to get them banging their heads against the wall. And as it happens, I've had a few over the desk. You know, tell me, well, you know, I used to say, where's your ego coming from? What gives you the power to tell me that I'm a sick person? And, you know, I had a really sick ego. But I found out today that it's a spiritual program. It took me a time to find that out for myself, you know. I tell you, when I used to go to meetings, I went, clean time, it doesn't matter, but my clean time matters to me, because I lived it. And, but for the first 2 years, they said 90 meetings in 90 days, and the most important person in this room is a newcomer, and that's true. And so if there's any newcomers here, and if there's anyone that's going through any pain, you're safe in here. Believe me, you're safe. And when I came in, I didn't give a monkey's, because I heard that you could stop drinking and stop drugging. And that's what I wanted to do. I was going insane. And where I ended up was insanity. And I just didn't want to go through that blackness anymore. those kind of feelings. And can you hear me all right? Yeah? Eh? Speak a bit louder. You see what I mean about these bloody things? So anyway, yeah, hand it over. Anyway, what happened to me when I came into the meetings, and 90 meetings in 90 days, I did that for 2 years. My recovery come first. That's true. And another thing is that I know in the past that when I'd done anything, I either did it or I didn't. And the illness for me was insanity. And so I put everything I had into recovery. And for me, my recovery does come first. And I've learned through a lot of things in the past, like being clean and free, that I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm going to tell you too much about all the mistakes because some of you might copy me. But I've learned through a lot of painful situations. I was told to do, they told me not to make, any serious decisions in the first year and concentrate on recovery. Anyway, what happened? I think I'll switch back to when I was a kid. I was pretty mixed up, and I think a lot of you can understand that. And I was put in a kids' home at the age of 8, a children's home, because no one could handle me. And I had my first court conviction at the age of 11 or 8, something like that. I can't remember. And I found that I used to get a buzz out of being antisocial. And, if they told me to sit down, I'd stand up. It's as simple as that. But inside, I didn't want to do that. But I did it. I did the opposite to what I felt. I felt showing feelings like crying were weak. And I sort of got into a lot of macho bullshit, And so when I was 15, I was kicked out, and people have heard my story before, so sit back and relax. But when I was 15, I was kicked out. I was on the road at the age of 15, and I thought, this is it. Now it's my world. But believe me, I was frightened. There's a lot of weirdos out there, and I used to meet them. So I thought the best thing to do was for me to become even weirder. And I was quite insane. And like I said before, I used to have a sick ego. And this isn't a war story or anything like that, And I just want to tell you how much the program has changed me. And, I was told I was a tattoo minister society. That boosted my sick ego up, made me worse. And I didn't care, I thought I didn't have any fear in me or anything like that. But it all started changing when I was about 19. I used to have a lot of relationships. They were important to me. But I was very insecure in relationships because I could never understand how to love anybody. I could never trust it. Today I'm learning a lot more different about unconditional love and stuff like that. And that's what I'm learning a day at a time. So when I got introduced to drugs when I was 19, it done something to me. Drug of choice, it doesn't matter. I ain't going to say what it was, it doesn't matter. But from that day, my life started changing. I got worse, and it got worse. And you hear people saying that addicts are, are social cowards or something like that. But I used to hang around with people from all walks of life, different types of people, and I think I could only describe as the guys, we were just long-haired bloody gangsters. And, it was a very, very heavy scene, and some of the things I can't even talk about because I don't need to. But all the time it kept getting worse and worse. One day I got sentenced to another prison sentence, and I hated prison. I spent over 5 years in prison, but it saved my life. And I knew how to survive in prison. I know how to survive. And what happened, whilst I was in prison, I thought, no, I've got to change. I can't go back out on the streets and use, because that's all I knew. So I went into a therapeutic community after I finished my prison sentence with a kind of attitude was, well, I've done my sentence, because there were a lot of people there who were waiting to go up to court and stuff like that. I said, well, I've done my sentence, I'm here for me, because I want to stop using. I went through a lot of group therapy, screaming and shouting at each other. I like that. I could give over some real heavy vibes verbally. You know, believe me, I could give over some really heavy vibes and back it up. And I thought that was the power, but it wasn't. And I went through feelings. I really tried to find out who I was. But when I got back out onto the streets, I went from drugs to alcohol. And I went down. And for the last 5 years of my suffering as a practicing alcoholic and a practicing addict, it was pure and utter hell. I've been into mental institutions and I got thrown out of them. But my life started changing when I came into the fellowship. And like I said, NA wasn't around at the time. And it was just AA. You know, I've got a lot of friends in AA, but I don't go to AA anymore. I stick to NA, because that for me is okay. And I try not to confuse anybody else about getting on the political side, so I won't get on about that. But I think a lot of you know what I'm talking about. I mean, it's a simple program, let's put it that way. And this is a growing fellowship. Look at us here, right? It's a growing fellowship. And who says we can't? And so anyway, I carried on going to AA, and what it gave me was a kind of freedom. But I never really felt at home, because I was told not to talk about drugs. But you tell me not to talk about something, especially when I was pretty sick. And I used to say, listen man, or whoever it was, you know, I used to say, this is my life I'm talking about. So you don't tell me how to share it. I think you want to take a good look at yourself. And I used to have people up against walls, you know, the unspiritual ones. Because I was unspiritual, you know. And because to me those rooms for 1.5 hours was my lifeline. You come into a meeting and you're trying to live normally. I've never lived normally. I've tried to. But I always cocked it up somehow. I could never really understand. Today I'm getting a wee bit more normal. I have friends outside of the fellowship who, there are a lot of doors open for me now, you know. But anyway, what happened, I just carried on going to meetings. And, you know, I used to do a lot of chairs, I was involved in a lot of service. Because it's true, the only way you can keep what you have is by giving it away. And for me, this fellowship never ceases to amaze me, because I've seen people walk in, just like me, just as hopeless, just as bewildered, just as confused, just as fucked up, but get better. It does. The best thing you can say, and the best thing people used to say to me was, keep coming back. I said, I'm going to. I remember one time they had a no swearing meeting. No swearing. So I went along there and swore my head off, just to wind them up, because I'm like that, see? I'm not like that too much today, but I have my moments, so I work the program to the best of my ability. And because I know when the old me's coming up. But the greatest thing that ever happened in my life was the day I heard one member say, "I'm an alcoholic and drug addict." And from that day, NA has grown. Like Jeremy said, you know, for 26 meetings, to a lot of people, you know, people who've been over to England and been to our meetings. I mean, to a lot of people, 26 meetings may not seem a lot, but to us it is a lot. And it's just fantastic, you know, what's been happening. And for a long time, we were, you know, for at least a couple of years, we were pretty blind to what we were doing. We were just running meetings. And we were going on literature, that's all we had. The recovery text wasn't out then. And we were doing everything wrong, but it still ended up the right way. And it's, you know, the things that have happened to me in recovery is just amazing. This is my second time this year over to America, and the ticket has been paid for by the fellowships over here, and I appreciate that. Thank you. And the first time I came over was in 1982 to Memphis, and I got a sort of, like Jeremy said, a culture shock, you know. I'll never forget it, you know, that like the privilege was that the NA Fellowship bought the ticket for me, and in England, because they wanted me to come over. And my first reaction was no, because I had to deal with authority. And you know, even using authority, you know, dealing with authority then was a bit difficult at that time. So I went along to the American Embassy, and they just said, "No way. We can't let you out of the country." I thought, oh yeah. So, you know, I always consider myself a hustler. I thought, okay, you know, I spent over 5 years in jail, I've done a lot of sick things, but I thought, right, the hustle is on. The hustle is on. And I went round to a lot of people, and like today, I even go out, a lot of people know, you know, I even go out to dinner today with a judge who sent me down. And he wrote a letter for me. A lot of people wrote letters for me, and they gave me a visa.
I don't know where to start. This is just amazing, this whole experience. There's no way in the world that I would have imagined a few years ago coming across here for this sort of thing. You know, there's no way I could have imagined. In my head, I could have been in India, Pakistan. There was good stuff in Pakistan, Thailand, that sort of thing, you know. But there's just no way I could have imagined, in realistic terms, having the money or the hospitality to come here, and what I've been shown here is amazing. My using, I'll start off before I was using. Before I used, I was a really kind of isolated person. I went around a lot of the time. My biggest game was to sulk. You know, I used to spend a lot of time sulking. If anything happened that didn't go my way, if anyone said anything that I didn't like, I went into what I call a mope. You know, I just sort of wandered around with my sort of my back right sort of bent down like this, and so on. And you know, I don't know. I guess I used to sleep it off and start off the next day and hope people would like me a bit more. I don't know. Crazy, but I never really took to anything except really my head, you know, and thinking about how I wanted things to be and how I wanted the world to be, and how I really wanted to be a rock star or a movie star. You know, if I used to go and see something like a movie, I'd spend the next 4 hours being Clint Eastwood on the streets. You know, I'd walk around, I'd have everything but the gun. I'd have the walk right for about a half an hour, and then it would start to wear off, whatever. And I was really, you know, I remember my parents always used to describe me as really easily influenced. You know, I always used to be really easily led astray. don't know if any of you can identify with that, but that was me anyway. And I took to drink at school, and when I drank. In England we have pubs. I don't know if any of you know that. We only open at certain times. So for an alcoholic, it's a bit miserable. You have to do it at home from the start, from the word go, if you want to really go for it. And we used to have pubs at school, and we used to go on to these pubs. And when I drank, I didn't drink to have a glass in my hand. I didn't drink to socialise. I drank to get drunk. I really drank to go for it, from the word go. And that's really how my whole life was, my using all the way through. I spent about 4 years using. I don't really want to go into the whole sort of horror story, because I'm just not into it, and I know that all of you, I believe that all of you have been through it. I really do, because otherwise we wouldn't be here, and we wouldn't be being saved up for something like this. Basically, my using took me from pretty privileged background, pretty. I wasn't rich, I wasn't spoilt, but I was well looked after. It took me to prison in the end, and I spent some time in there. And when I was in there, I had a go at the sort of the ending it all bit. I had a go at sort of slashing my wrists and hanging myself. And I had a few goes at overdosing. I remember. Whenever I overdosed, I was a real coward when I overdosed. I used to get this stuff, and I used to put the whole lot in the spoon, and then I'd save a bit just in case I didn't quite make it. And that's how sort of crazy I was when I used. I never lived up to any of my convictions, any of my decisions. It was always going to be, tomorrow, or my other stories were, I've been really good, I've been off for a week or so now, and I hadn't been off at all. And as my addiction got worse, I always kept down jobs. I always used to get jobs, and as my addiction got worse, the way I would dress and the way I would perform would become more extreme in the opposite direction. So I would give off more of an air of being together, and inside, and back at home it was a squat, and it was mattresses on the floor and stuff, and the gap widened. And when I came into this fellowship, I didn't believe you when you said to me it would get better. I didn't think I wanted it to get better at the time. I don't know if I wanted to change. I just hung around because I didn't want it to get worse, I guess. If I'm being honest with myself, that's where I was at the time. And I spent a few months in this fellowship, pretty miserable. I used to analyze a lot. I used to analyze a heck of a lot. I was very miserable, and I guess I kind of fought this program. I didn't want it to get worse, but I was kind of white knuckling it in a sort of in a way, and it stayed like that for a few months, and I reached this stage where I was so miserable that people didn't want to have me around. I used to go to meetings, and after meetings, people will go off and we have coffee or whatever. I used to go up to people after meetings. I used to say, "Hey, what are you doing? Can I come out?" And they say, "Well, actually, we'd rather you didn't." So I basically realised that I was really, people were saying to me, "Listen, you've really got to do something," and it was with those sort of words that I started to realise that either I stayed where I was and I just stayed miserable, and I mixed with people who were just losing, or I did something about myself. And I guess it's that sort of attitude change that I'd really like to talk about. It's what strikes me about this program, what makes me really stop is the second step. I don't know why, I don't know what it is about it, but it's taken me a long time. I went through this place where we did the first 5 steps like junk food. We did them in about 6 or 8 weeks, really quick, and we whipped through them. When I did my 4th step, I did it like an exam. I had to pass the exam to get out of the treatment center, and I didn't really know what I was doing. And I almost got to the stage one or two times I almost made things up in my fourth step, because I wasn't ready. I just wasn't ready for what was coming. And in the last year and a bit, I've really gone back, and I've had a really close look at the first three, and I had to really look at my life, and I had to look at my feelings, and I had to look at how, it's not just that I can't control drugs, but I can't even handle my feelings. I can't manage these things on my own, And when I realized that wholeheartedly, I realized that there was something I needed, there was something, and the way I I started to look at things is I started to look back, and I'd had a good 6 or 7 months from that rock bottom. And I started to look right back to that rock bottom, and I looked back before that, and I don't know, some of us, I guess I'm still finding my higher power now, I'm still finding him today. I go on finding him, I go on coming to believe stronger, and I go on turning my will and my life over, and I'm a slow learner, I can tell you, I'm a really slow learner. It takes a long time for stuff to sink into my head, I don't know, but when I look back on all those withdrawals, and I look back on all those that paranoia and those feelings of complete loneliness, desperation, and for me it was like people were really trying to kill me. I was sure of it at the time, and I look back on all that, and those sort of feelings of complete childish giggles that I used to get when I first came off. And I look back on that lot, and I think, well, something and somebody is looking after me, and I believe today that something is looking after me for better things, and better things, and better things that will continue to get better. And I believe also that we've been chosen in here, I really do, because there's no way that my God anyway would wash me up on some beach, completely stranded, freaked out of my head, if it wasn't to save me for things like this, and to come along here for opportunities like this. And it's just the proof is in the eating, it's extraordinary. I've been through a lot in the last year and a half. When I came into this fellowship, I took myself very seriously, and I was what in England, I don't know if you call this, if you have expression like this in England, we call it intense. I was really intense, boy. Yeah, that's right, Marilyn. And it drove people away from me, and it made me miserable, and I didn't know how to not take myself seriously. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to stop thinking about myself. I was the only person I could think about for a long time, and I stuck around, and people told me things, and people gave me different bits of advice, and the advice ranged from picking up ashtrays after meetings and listening to other people, not like a lamppost, and just letting it all wash, just go in one ear and out the other, but just take it in, because sometimes even still I feel inadequate. I feel that I can't necessarily give some guy the right feedback. I don't know it all anymore, and I used to, I just to listen to someone else and other bits of advice. People used to say, there was one girl who said, when I said to her, how do I take myself less seriously? And she said, what you do is you go back to your flat, you take all your clothes off, and you turn the music up full blast, and you dance around the flat for half an hour. And I tried it, and it worked, okay? So, if anyone has that problem, I understand, believe me. I don't know, I just got so much help from this fellowship. I had a lot of problems with this fellowship and the other fellowship, and in London we had a situation when I came around. This was about 17 months ago. In London we had a situation where a lot of people in London were out of treatment centres, and we had about about sort of 70%, 75%, 80% maybe of the people in the meetings were through treatment centres, and I had a lot of problems thinking, well, which is the fellowship that's stronger, which is the fellowship that is for me, you know, and I thought about it and I thought a bit, and I went to one and I went to the other, and I came out confused out of both. And today we have about 26 meetings of NA in London, and we have we have I don't know how many members. You know the story. We can never tell how many members there are, but there's probably, I don't know, maybe something around 500, you know, in England, and we're growing fast. And the fact is that in 17 months we've jumped from 10 to 26. We've jumped from a ratio of what seems to me anyway of say 80% out of treatment and 20% doing it just through NA. I mean, we're about 50-50, if not more, doing it just through NA, you know. And that's and really, you know, I just really decided that my heart lies in this fellowship. You know, I'm an addict. I drank, sure, but I'm an addict. You know, it takes some getting used to all this clapping, you know. In London we're really reserved, you know. We just sit there. We don't show anything for it till it's cool. But yeah, it's different. I'm suffering from a lot of culture shock at the moment because you know, when Americans, I was talking to someone about this before the meeting, when Americans used to come over to England, and when I was using, and I used to see them in the street, and they used to ask, you know, how do you get to Oxford Street? And I'd maliciously give them the wrong directions, and stuff like that, and I'd hear them look at monuments, and I'd hear them sort of wowing at it and think, you know, well, what's the big deal? And now I'm going through it, you know. Now I'm really feeling it. I mean, I feel like I'm in Gotham City out of Batman or something. It's good. I don't know. It's very difficult for me to express all of what I've got from this fellowship. I've got a lot of things from being sober that are material. I've got a new job. I got a lot of things that I could write down for you on paper and say, hey, this is how it's different. But what I got most of all is God, you know, in this fellowship, and. And he took, you know, it took me a while to find him. It took me a while to find him. And I don't just mean through my using. It took me a while to find him in recovery. It took me a while to find him through literature, through talking to people, and becoming willing to believe. You know, I really believe in that word willingness, because if I really try, I used to get on my hands and knees and I used to try, and my knuckles would literally be white. You know, but if I'm willing, I don't need to try. I mean, trying helps, but if I'm willing, it's more of a kind of physical, relaxed. You know, I want what you guys have got. Simple as that. And that to me is how it works for me. I believe that I get a lot of situations, and I get put in a lot of situations, and I believe that I'm meeting my higher power through those situations. I don't believe I'm a sort of complete instrument of my higher power. I don't believe I'm Jesus or anything like that. But you know, so there's something working in my life that has completely transformed my life, and transformed, more importantly, the way I look at people, the way I look at situations, and the way I look at things. And I've got a long way to go. You know, I've got a long way to go to find more out about my higher power. And it's not very often, I would hasten to add, that I am in a situation where I will turn around and I will say, you know, what do you want? more often than not, it's, hey, listen, this is what I want. Can you kind of negotiate it for me? But it's taken me a while to start, and I only say start, turning around and saying, what do you want? I want to know what you want. And that's to me, it gives me a feeling of freedom when I feel that, you know. I'd like to stop now. I'm just going to sit down and take in some more of your culture. Thanks a lot for listening.